Our story begins with Chao Chung, the owner of a zoo that is currently on the brink of total collapse. However, a single video unexpectedly made the place go viral because it featured two birds that seemed remarkably intelligent. One was a cockatiel named Ingwu, who not only had a foul mouth, but actually took delivery orders online. The other was a duck leader who, with one command, sent hundreds of ducks into the sky like a dark, sun-blocking cloud. The sight was truly overwhelming, and it earned Chao Chung titles like the God-tier director. To be honest, he deserved them. After his parents' sudden passing, he was forced to inherit this dilapidated zoo along with a mountain of problems. He was left with tens of millions in debt, and while his relatives turned their backs on him, his employees all vanished. Only a kind woman and her daughter chose to stay. Just as he prepared to sell the zoo, a voice echoed in his head. A system had detected that its host had transmigrated into a cultivation world as the holy son of the Jade Beast sect. It informed him that he had inherited a fallen sect and must now restore the Jade Beast sect to its former glory. He was told to expand the sect, teach disciples, and breed spiritual beasts to ensure the legacy continued. By gaining fame and prestige, he could increase the sect's reputation points, which, naturally, was the key to everything. For every 10 points earned, he would receive a reward. He was ecstatic to have a system, but then he realized something. The system seemed to have mistaken his zoo for a cultivation sect. If he had to expand the sect, did that just mean upgrading the zoo's infrastructure? And surely recruiting disciples was just a fancy term for hiring staff. Breeding spiritual beasts likely meant increasing the number of wild animals, while gaining fame meant boosting the zoo's popularity. He needed to verify this immediately. Looking at the newbie gift pack in the system interface, he silently commanded it to open. Inside, he found a cultivation technique called the Holy Sun's Jade Beast Art. He also received 3 Spirit Awakening pills and 3 Beast Spirit pills. The Jade Beast Art was a technique exclusive to him. The Awakening pills were spiritual medicines for animals, designed to optimize their bloodlines and grant them human-like intelligence. The pills used spiritual energy to strengthen the body and clear the meridians. As he looked at these rewards, Chao Chung quickly formed a plan. He needed to master the cultivation technique first. If he could control beasts, he could perform incredible feats with the animals. Another live stream would surely boost the sect's reputation points. Yes, of course. The system's technique was learned instantly. In critical moments, it even allowed him to temporarily command non-contracted beasts or borrow the strength of his contracted ones. And so, he began searching for a suitable beast in his dilapidated zoo. While he was hesitating, a cockatiel nearby began squawking insults at him, repeatedly calling him a fool. Annoyed by the bird's attitude, he decided to make it his first contracted beast. If it dared to curse him, then it would have to work off its sins by performing. He then fed it the Awakening and Spirit pills. A moment later, the cockatiel's body size suddenly doubled right before our eyes, its tail feathers growing long and thick. The bird then spoke through a divine sense, claiming it hadn't meant to insult him earlier. It explained that those were the only words it knew. To be honest, it was a rather convenient excuse. The bird even bowed its wings respectfully. Amused by its quick wit, Chao Chung decided to name it Wensi. Wensi thanked him, but then complained of an itchy head, wondering if it was finally growing a brain. It felt the spiritual energy and the flow of the wind. It could control them now. The cockatiel began circling, about a meter above the ground, and suddenly, the fallen leaves were swept up into several small whirlwinds. A miniature tornado formed instantly, and Wensi accelerated like a cannonball into the sky. It shot up dozens of meters, soaring and diving with unnatural agility. It was a sight to behold. While watching in shock, Chao Chung realized his own body was changing too. He could also feel the flow of the wind. Every movement felt as though he could catch the breath of the air itself. The Jade Beast Art had shared the parrot's wind abilities with him. He felt faster than he ever had before. The wind-controlling cockatiel dived down and landed gracefully on his shoulder. He told the bird that his master was in trouble and needed its help. 2 hours later, we see Chao Chung spending his last 5,000 yuan on an action camera and a wireless streaming device. He told the bird to wear the gear and prepare for its performance. Meanwhile, in a villa resort outside the city's 4th Ring Road, a middle-aged woman realized her child had forgotten both their medicine and keys for school. She was stuck at work and couldn't leave. Her only choice was a flash delivery service, but after several minutes, no one had accepted the order. In her desperation, she opened an app, searching for delivery services. Surprisingly, the first result was a live stream titled Holy Son of the Chang'an Zoo Beast Sect. Inside the stream, a beautiful cockatiel stood before a mirror, already equipped with the broadcasting gear. It was quite a professional look. The host didn't show his face, but his voice could be heard clearly, addressing the small audience that had gathered. He asked for follows and explained that for the price of a single sunglasses gift, the bird would perform a local flash delivery. Anyone needing a delivery just had to agree to the broadcast, send the gift, and then private message him the pickup address. There were only about 20 people watching, and most were skeptical. To be honest, it did sound like a bit of a scam. They wondered if the host was just trying to steal money. After all, who would actually trust a bird with their belongings? Just then, a user named Wealthy Blossom sent the gift. It was the worried mother. Chao Chung thanked her and asked for the address. Too anxious to use private messages, she typed the address directly into the chat, begging him to deliver the keys immediately. The destination was the Xingfu community on Linghua Road. She was in a terrible hurry, and we can certainly understand why. The chat erupted in excitement. Someone joked that they were watching closely, and if he scammed her, they would report him immediately. At that moment, the camera view shifted as the bird flew out of the management office hall. The adventure was officially beginning. After a quick spin, the camera tilted sharply toward the sky. Within seconds, the perspective shifted back to the front. They were already hundreds of meters in the air, with half the city visible below. The cockatiel accelerated toward its destination. The scenery below blurred into a series of streaks. It was moving so fast that the viewers could hardly believe their eyes. The chat was in disbelief, wondering if the bird could actually find the destination. One viewer even calculated the distance on a map app. From the Chang'an Zoo to the starting point was 11 kilometers. Some complained about the blurry video, urging the host to upgrade his gear. Even before the pickup, a few small gifts began to pop up on the screen. Suddenly, the resort villa appeared in the frame. We see they had arrived in less than 3 minutes. Crossing 11 kilometers that quickly? To be honest, that bird might need a drug test. Xiao Chang directed the woman to the southeast corner of the resort, asking her to find an open space so they could complete the handoff. As soon as he spoke, the wind-controlling cockatiel dived straight toward the southeast corner. There, they spotted a middle-aged woman. She was jumping and waving her arms. With a beautiful mid-air stall, the bird landed gracefully right in front of her. The woman, looking absolutely delighted, identified herself as Wealthy Blossom and held out the keys she needed to send. Xiao Chang promised the delivery would be made. Wealthy Blossom was so excited she wasn't even sure how to hand the keys over. It was a truly magical sight as the cockatiel reached out its talons and snatched the keys directly from her hand. Before she could even react, the bird took to the skies once more. Its next target, the Xingfu community. The bird intentionally slowed down for the 24-kilometer trip, taking 9 minutes. Meanwhile, the audience grew to 7,000 people. In the blink of an eye, the live stream showed the bird arriving at the third unit of the apartment complex. A young girl was crouching on the ground, hugging her legs and sobbing. The mother confirmed that this was indeed her daughter. The girl hadn't seen the stream, and although her mother had called to say a bird was coming, she was still completely dazed. She looked up to see a beautiful cockatiel hovering above her, which then dropped a set of keys right into her lap. The bird chirped, "Your mom's keys," repeatedly, which immediately sent the live stream chat into fits of laughter. Technically, the bird wasn't wrong, but the phrasing was hilarious. The viewers were stunned that the bird could actually talk. Of course, a talking parrot isn't that rare, but this one was certainly special. At that moment, Chao Chang's reputation points hit 10. He received a reward, the Mystic Spirit Medical Arts. This ancient knowledge would allow him to heal almost any ailment. The mystical beast's innate skills could even be transplanted to others, though the process was a bit tedious. It was a good reward, even if it left him speechless. However, he noticed his reputation points were climbing far too slowly. He wondered if it really took 10,000 viewers just to gain a single point. With so many people watching the drone stream, some skeptics claimed no parrot could know that many words. They were convinced it was just a recording. But a moment later, the cockatiel flew toward a skyscraper. In the reflective glass of the building, the bird's reflection was captured with perfect clarity. Those who thought they were being clever were instantly silenced by the evidence. Of course, the chat went quiet for a brief, humbled moment. Still, a large group continued to complain about the drone, mostly out of pure jealousy. Because of this negativity, the viewer count stalled. The audience hovered between 20 and 30,000, but Chao Chang persisted for the entire day. Finally, he addressed his growing community. He told them that today's stream was ending. He invited everyone to visit his family's Chang'an Zoo on the North 3rd Ring Road of Yunhai City. He promised to be back online at 9 the next morning. And with a simple goodbye, he cut the feed and closed the live stream. We see the energy of his new medical arts entering his body, surging through his core and expanding his spiritual sea before finally settling within. He felt incredibly refreshed, his body light, and his meridians clear. Curious about his earnings, he opened the back end of the streaming app. The total revenue was a staggering 178,000 yuan. After the platform took its half and taxes were deducted, the final withdrawal amount was ready. It came to 79,103 yuan. He couldn't help but marvel at the sum. No wonder everyone in society wanted to be an influencer these days. After that, he found Sister Luo and sent her 15,000 yuan. He explained it was 9,000 for 3 months of salary, plus a little extra. The remaining 6,000 was a bonus for the month. Upon receiving the money, she didn't just leave. Instead, she became quite anxious about the amount. He told her it wasn't too much and insisted she take it. Luo Jin eventually accepted and followed his instructions for their new living arrangements. She and her daughter moved into the second floor of the zoo's management hall, right next door to him. He then returned to his room to rest. As he sat down, his cultivation increased significantly. His physical functions and 5 senses became much sharper, allowing him to hear everything outside. Hearing a sudden flurry of chirps, he went downstairs and found a black bird struggling on the ground. It was a crow, or perhaps a raven. It was even larger than the cockatiel that had eaten the spirit pill. As a protected species, this was a find he couldn't simply ignore. This fierce bird of prey was injured and clearly struggling. The raven initially viewed him with hostility, fighting back with what little strength it had left. But as it felt the aura of the holy beast technique radiating from him, it suddenly grew calm. We see him carefully examining the creature's condition. A small piece of its wing was shattered, and its abdomen had been sliced by something sharp. Had it arrived a day earlier, he truly couldn't have saved it. He told the bird it was lucky, and after using his mystical medical arts to heal the raven, he activated the holy beast technique once more. And just like that, the raven became his second contracted spirit beast. The next morning, vehicles began arriving at the zoo one after another. Most were local influencers looking to leech off the trending topic for views. Among them was a fraud-busting influencer with 1 million followers known as Brother Ya, who held his selfie stick high while broadcasting live. He shouted toward the zoo, demanding to know where everyone was. Before long, Luo Jin came running out to see what the commotion was about. Seeing such a massive crowd, she was understandably confused. Brother Ya simply raised his documents and announced they were there to expose a fraud. He demanded she call out the ancestral beast tamer, who used a drone to trick people during yesterday's livestream. Luo Jin's expression immediately soured. She could tell instinctively that this man was looking for trouble. Meanwhile, Brother Ye told his viewers he was there to protect a fan's rights. Apparently, a fan had spent 2,600 yuan on gifts during the zoo stream, but they did so under a false impression. They believed the bird in the stream was real, when in reality, Brother Ye claimed it was nothing more than a bird-shaped drone. He cited the civil code regarding consumer fraud and looked at Luo Jin, asking if she understood the gravity of the situation. He told her to stop wasting time and bring the owner out immediately. Hearing this, Luo Jin was absolutely fuming. She knew the truth, of course, as Chao Cheng had explained the stream to her while the cockatiel sat right there. She told the man to shut up. Brother Ye snapped back, claiming that not calling the police was his greatest act of mercy, as he hated influencers who scammed their fans. Getting more worked up by the second, he kicked the zoo's fence with a heavy thud. The sudden violence caused Luo Jin to recoil in fear. Every influencer's camera was now locked onto the scene, sensing a major conflict was about to erupt. But then, something strange happened. A mass of rolling black clouds suddenly gathered over the park, slowly pressing down toward the crowd like a heavy, dark curtain. As the mass drew closer, we see that it wasn't a storm cloud at all, but a dense, swirling swarm of countless black ravens. Beneath this living shadow, a young man approached. A large black raven was perched on his left shoulder, while on his right sat a cockatiel, watching the crowd as they walked forward. As he drew near, the swarm of ravens above finally came to a halt. They settled around him in a scene that was as breathtaking as it was eerie. Chao Cheng stared coldly at Brother Ye and asked if he was the one who kicked the fence. The entire area fell into a sudden, deathly silence. To be honest, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife as the raven on his shoulder let out a single, raspy caw. Immediately, the entire flock followed suit, a deafening cry that made everyone's skin crawl with unease. Brother Ye took a breath and asked if he was the host of the Chang'an Zoo account. Chao Cheng calmly confirmed that he was. The influencer claimed he was there for his fans, accusing Chao Cheng of false advertising and tricking people out of 2,600 yuan in gifts. He argued the gifts were sent believing the bird was real, but since it was clearly a drone, he insisted the zoo had broken the law. Chao Cheng remained completely unbothered, almost finding the situation amusing. He tilted his chin toward Wency and welcomed the man to try and expose him. The cockatiel immediately took flight, landing on the fence in front of them. The crowd of influencers surged forward, cameras at the ready. They recognized it instantly as the bird from yesterday's stream, the one that had been admiring its own reflection in the glass. Suddenly, Wency opened his beak and reminded everyone to make sure they were using a beauty filter, which naturally sent the crowd into fits of laughter. But beneath the laughter was pure shock. This bird was learning new words. It was a divine creature, and anyone with eyes could see the truth. There was no way this was a drone. This was a living, breathing bird, not to mention the massive flock of ravens currently filling the sky. The bird seemed to follow his every command. With such mastery over nature, the idea of him using a fake bird for a live stream seemed utterly ridiculous. Brother Ye was now completely stunned. With Wency right in front of him, there was no denying that this was a real animal, not a machine. He glanced at his phone and saw his viewership had spiked to over 30,000 people. It was, quite ironically, the peak of his career. Unfortunately for him, those thousands of people were all witnessing his total humiliation. His face turned a deep, frustrated shade of red. He stammered that it was impossible, but then a desperate spark of inspiration hit him. He shouted, demanding to know how Chao Cheng could prove the bird was real. He claimed that while the bird before them was real, the one from yesterday's stream was definitely a drone, and Chao Cheng was simply trying to fool them now. Chao Cheng let out a short, dry laugh, wondering aloud if just any random person could call themselves a fraud hunter these days. Behind him, the crowd of influencers finally began to turn. Someone finally spoke up, telling Brother Ye to get lost and stop making a fool of himself for trying to defend people without even knowing the facts. They mocked his poor attempt at an expose, and as more people joined in to kick him while he was down, Brother Ye found himself utterly speechless. He immediately prepared to slink away in shame, but Chao Cheng stopped him, noting that he couldn't just walk away after kicking the fence and intimidating his staff. He demanded an apology. Suddenly, the entire flock of ravens let out a synchronized, eerie cry and took to the air all at once. They descended like a heavy black cloud pressing down on the crowd, forcing everyone to instinctively crouch down in fear. The ravens all landed directly on Brother Ya's car. The message was quite clear. If he didn't apologize, he wasn't going anywhere. The scene left everyone shaken once again, and every camera lens was now focused on this disciplined, almost military-like flock of birds. At that moment, the comment sections of every livestream were flooded with the same sentiment. Wait, is this guy actually for real? To the viewers, Chao Cheng was a real man of principle. Brother Ye had come looking for a fight, and Chao Cheng had played along perfectly. Now that the fraud hunter had failed, he couldn't just turn tail and run. Even Brother Ye's own stream began to fill with praise for the zoo owner. Brother Ye was absolutely fuming. If he didn't apologize, he would look uneducated and irresponsible, proving his justice was just an act. His entire public persona was on the verge of collapsing, but if he did apologize, he was admitting he was foolish and unprofessional. It would mean no one would ever trust his content again. Left with no choice, he finally muttered a forced, "I'm sorry," toward Luo Jin. Brother Ye chose a temporary compromise. Luo Jin, for his part, was completely stunned by the turn of events. He hadn't expected his boss to stand up for him over such a small matter, refusing to let him be mistreated. It was a strange, overwhelming feeling. With the apology delivered, the ravens took flight once more. Brother Ye scrambled back into his car and sped away as fast as he could. He left behind a crowd of influencers still holding their cameras and a group of curious onlookers. For a moment, a heavy silence hung over the area. Dropping his cold expression, Chao Cheng addressed the local creators, introducing himself warmly as the owner of Chang'an Zoo. He explained that having just taken over the zoo, business was clearly struggling, and his live streams were simply a way to use his family's traditional skills. While they would cooperate with any unreasonable fraud hunters, he noted that they would much rather welcome friendly exchanges with open arms. With a smile, Chao Cheng gestured to the crowd, inviting the influencers to point their cameras toward the cockatiel once again. He promised a single, uncut shot to prove his innocence once and for all, inviting everyone to enter the park and see for themselves. As he opened the gates, the influencers thanked him, delighted at the chance to enter the zoo without even having to buy a ticket. They praised his impressive animal taming skills, certain the zoo would thrive soon. Meanwhile, under the watchful eyes of the cameras, Chao Cheng equipped the cockatiel with the streaming gear and began the broadcast, following the exact same routine as the day before. The entire process was meticulously recorded by the crowd, from the initial confrontation with Brother Ye to Chao Cheng's dramatic entrance. The sight of the ravens surrounding the car, the forced apology, and the uncut tour of the park sent the story straight to the trending lists. For the first time, the number of viewers in his own livestream room surged past 50,000 people, a massive milestone for the zoo. By the time he started the afternoon broadcast, his popularity had skyrocketed, quickly reaching over 100,000 viewers. Not long after the stream began, a system notification suddenly popped up. His sex reputation had reached 30 points, unlocking a reward. He received 2 sensory bells, a mystical tool that allowed him to temporarily borrow the sight and hearing of his contracted beasts. He realized with a start that since both his beasts were birds, this was essentially a first-person VR flight mode for the entire world. He continued streaming until 5 in the evening, and just as he finished, a young man rushed into the management office looking quite excited. Chao Cheng asked if he needed help, but before he could finish, the stranger performed a formal, somewhat old-fashioned martial arts salute. The man introduced himself as Song Xingjia, claiming he wanted to collaborate with Chao Cheng on a matter of great importance. He then pulled an official badge from his pocket, revealing he was from the Yunhai City Law Enforcement Bureau to investigate a major case. Chao Cheng immediately straightened up, declaring that assisting the law was the duty of every citizen, and invited the officer to take a seat. And so, the conversation stretched on until the clock finally struck 11 that night. We shift our focus to the command center of the Yunhai City Law Enforcement Bureau, where Director Song Taizhan was personally overseeing a high-stakes operation. His team was tracking 3 suspects involved in a major human trafficking case, but after following them to a remote village, the situation took a difficult turn. The suspects had abandoned the main roads, traveling on foot along narrow paths before scaling a mountain and splitting up in 3 entirely different directions. Song Taizhan and Captain Luo, who shared a grim look. It seemed this criminal group was far more cautious than they had initially anticipated. To be honest, it was no wonder they had evaded capture for so long, as monitoring them on these treacherous mountain trails was proving nearly impossible. Indeed, when the nearby officers attempted to maintain pursuit, they quickly realized they had already lost all trace of the suspects' movements. Song Taizhan immediately ordered everyone to cease the pursuit, knowing that pushing his team further into the wilderness would be a reckless gamble. If they continued, his officers would likely be exposed, leading not only to a failed mission but potentially to unnecessary casualties as well. At that moment, Luo who received a text message, and as he read it, his eyes lit up with sudden, unexpected hope. He leaned in and whispered to the director that the message was from Xingjia, causing Song Taizhan to frown in immediate frustration. He felt this was hardly the time for Luo who to be humoring his son's usual antics, but then he asked what the boy wanted. Luo who explained that, somehow, Xingjia had managed to keep up with the suspects and was currently tracking them. The young man was asking for access to their encrypted channel, claiming he could provide a live visual feed of the suspect's location. Recovering from his shock, Song Taizhan ordered his team to grant access immediately, desperate to understand exactly what his son was up to. Luo who quickly sent the credentials to Song Xingjia, and moments later, several live video feeds flickered onto the command center's massive main screen. The perspective was strange, a high-angle view that seemed to be perched precariously on a tree branch, though the image was somewhat grainy. They were clearly using a low-light night vision camera, but fortunately, the distance was close enough to see the suspects below with perfect clarity. On the screen, we see one of the suspects crouching low in the thick brush, unaware that he was being watched from above. As the man stood up and began to run toward a specific direction, the camera followed him instantly, gliding through the air with bold, effortless precision. The camera flew right alongside the suspect, occasionally emitting a strange, harsh cawing sound, the unmistakable cry of a raven. Immediately after, 2 more video feeds popped up on the screen, revealing the locations of the other 2 suspects as well. Both feeds showed the same low-altitude following perspective, and everyone in the hall clenched their fists in excitement, even Song Taizhan. Deep down, his heart was racing with disbelief. He wondered how this was even possible as the suspects stopped to check their phones. They were clearly reading coded messages from the Hongi gang, which meant they hadn't realized they were being followed at all. But how was it being done from such a close distance? And not just for one, but for all 3 suspects simultaneously. At this range, even a silent drone would be visible as a large, dark shadow if the suspects simply looked up. It seemed impossible, and we can only imagine the officers' confusion as they wondered what exactly was doing the tracking. Judging by the cawing and the sound of flapping wings, it had to be ravens equipped with low-light monitoring cameras. The cameras must have been strapped to the birds, an idea that was, to be perfectly honest, completely unbelievable. While the team was shocked, they were also thrilled that someone had trained birds to track targets through the mountains at night. As they processed this, everyone instinctively turned their gaze toward Song Taizhan, wondering how such a feat was possible. They wondered when the director had prepared such a secret cavalry, but in truth, Song Taizhan was the most shocked person in the room. He remembered the phone call from his son, Song Xingjia, just before the meeting began, where the boy insisted he could help. He hadn't believed him then, but now his supposedly good-for-nothing son had become his only hope for success. About an hour later, we see the suspects arrive at a factory building where the windows and cracks were all covered with black cloth. As the 3 men approached the entrance, someone opened the door from the inside, revealing a brightly lit interior. They had finally found it, the suspect's hidden base, and the atmosphere in the command hall reached a fever pitch. The 3 ravens remained in action. One circled high above to observe the terrain, while the other 2 landed on the roof. The 2 birds carefully pecked holes in the black cloth, using their own bodies to block the openings and prevent light from leaking out. They aimed their cameras directly into the factory, providing 2 simultaneous views of the interior for the officers to see. We see the interior of the factory clearly now. It's brightly lit, with quite a few people sitting around eating and drinking. It almost feels like a company team-building event, but the sight of the primary suspect, Hongi, at the table changes everything. The officers in the command hall are instantly electrified. They had expected a brutal battle, especially since they were going in blind. They never imagined these 2 ravens would provide a live broadcast, which, let's be honest, makes this feel like an open book exam. Just then, an operator suddenly shouts a warning to Song Taizhan. There's a hidden lookout, and things are about to go wrong. That single shout sends everyone's heart into their throats as they turn to the screen, watching the perspective of the raven outside. On the roof of a small shack about 300 meters from the factory, a man stands up holding a tablet-like device. He is urgently pulling out his phone to make a call, and Song Taizhan and the others watch in absolute horror. But right at that moment, the raven carrying the monitor suddenly dives down, charging straight toward the lookout. It moves with incredible speed, slamming into the lookout's hand, and we hear the man let out a sharp cry of pain. The raven has already taken flight again, its camera panning back to him, showing that the lookout's phone has been knocked away. The phone falls to the ground below, and without stopping to wonder why a raven just attacked him, the man jumps off the roof. He begins sprinting toward the factory, screaming at the top of his lungs that the police are coming, or at least, he tries to. Before he can finish his sentence, a dark figure leaps from the bushes and swings a club directly at his face. With a dull thud, the man falls flat on the ground and goes silent. It's Xingjia and Luo who grabs Song Taizhan in excitement. Song Xingjia has taken down the lookout with a single blow and quickly crouches back down to stay out of sight. Song Taizhan is utterly stunned by his son's actions, but there is no time to waste as the mission continues. The lookout has been neutralized, and he informs them that allies are stationed at the 7 o'clock position of the factory. He tells everyone to storm the main gate, noting that the 11 o'clock position is a heavy fire zone that needs control. Any resistors are to be shot on sight, though they must try to keep Hongi alive, all according to Song Tieshan's clear orders. Thanks to that quick takedown, the team members have already reached the factory walls, while the people inside finally notice something. They spot movement on the monitors, but it's far too late. The factory gate is blown open with a massive, thunderous blast. 3 flashbangs are tossed inside immediately after, followed by a swarm of armed officers storming through the breached entrance. The suspects inside are left completely dazed and disoriented by the explosions as the team rushes in to secure the area. There are so many suspects that they actually run out of handcuffs, resorting to zip ties until everyone is bundled up like livestock. The report finally comes through to headquarters. Hongi's entire criminal gang has been neutralized and taken into custody. The command hall erupts into a massive cheer at the news, and we see Song Taizhan finally let out a long, relieved breath. In this battle, the primary credit belongs to the 3 Ravens and Song Xingjie, though, unfortunately, he isn't part of the official system. Since the son can't be officially rewarded, the merit falls to his father instead. It is now after 3 in the morning. Inside the director's office, Song Taizhan frowns and interrupts, asking if those birds really just flew back to the zoo on their own. He questions if this mysterious man, Chao Cheng, has truly been at the zoo this entire time without ever stepping foot outside. Song Xingjie simply nods in confirmation, leaving Song Taizhan and Luo Hu staring at each other in absolute, speechless shock. To be honest, the ability to control birds for such precise, near-perfect reconnaissance is already something of a miracle. But to learn that this bird-taming master never even left his house makes the whole situation feel even more supernatural. The man was dozens of miles away while his 3 ravens completed the mission. It sounds like something out of a fairy tale. Of course, we should note that besides the cameras, the ravens were also equipped with small wireless radio receivers. This eccentric master gave his instructions through voice commands. Song Taizhan looks at Luo Hu with a very meaningful expression. He remarks that they cannot let such a talented individual slip through their fingers, suggesting they should pay him a formal visit. Luo Hu and the others understand exactly what he means. A man like Chao Cheng is a literal trump card for law enforcement. They realize they must focus on protecting him. After all, who knows when they might need his unique help with another major case. The decision is made to pay him a visit. Early the next morning, as Chao Cheng is having breakfast with Luo Jin and her mother, the parrot at the window begins to squawk. It cries out that guests have arrived. Chao Cheng tells the 2 women to keep eating while he heads to the zoo entrance to see who it is. He finds Song Xingjie standing there with an unfamiliar middle-aged man. With a smile, Chao Cheng greets the young man, calling him Officer Song. Song Xingjie's eye twitches uncontrollably. You see, he never told Luo Hu about his little charade of pretending to be a real officer. He only said they were friends. Naturally, Luo Hu, who is walking right behind him, is momentarily stunned by the title. Chao Cheng is equally confused by the sudden tension in the air. Sensing the impending disaster, Song Xingjie quickly speaks up, addressing Chao Cheng and bringing up the events of the previous night. He explains that the operation was a complete success and they helped break a major case, but then he admits he has a confession to make. With an embarrassed rub of his hands, he confesses that he isn't actually an officer and that he had lied about his identity the day before. Chao Cheng is left utterly dazed. Song Xingjie quickly adds that while he lied about himself, the man beside him is the real deal, the first captain of the Yunhai Bureau. This is Captain Luo Hu, his father's right-hand man. Chao Cheng takes a moment to process this, realizing the situation is much more formal than he expected. He notices a certain sharp, disciplined aura around Luo Hu, suggesting the man isn't just a leader, but likely a former soldier as well. Chao Cheng shoots Song Xingjie a frustrated look and asks who his father is. The young man leans in and whispers the answer quietly. He reveals his father is the chief of the Yunhai Bureau. Chao Cheng can only sniff in disbelief, feeling a bit like he's been caught in a whirlwind. He tells the boy to finish his sentences in one go next time, so he doesn't look like a social climber, before finally inviting the young master inside. Song Xingjie grins sheepishly, offering apologies and promising it won't happen again, while Luo Hu watches the exchange in silence. Luo Hu observes Chao Cheng closely, noting his calm confidence. Soon, we see them all in the management hall for a brief half-hour chat. They discuss the rewards for his help in the recent mission and express their hope that he might provide his unique assistance again in the future. To be honest, as a hot-blooded young man, Chao Cheng finds it impossible to refuse such a request. He agrees to help whenever they might need him. After they leave, he returns to his routine and live streams until 5 o'clock. However, seeing his prestige points at only 38, he feels a bit disappointed. Even though his viewership has been growing every day, hitting a peak of 160,000, the progress feels slower than he hoped. While he was receiving gifts until his hands were sore, his prestige growth was slowing down, likely because the viewers already knew about the zoo's existence. Since they were already familiar with it, they stopped providing new prestige points. Perhaps once the zoo officially opens and people visit in person, their fresh experiences will provide more prestige. However, the primary condition is still to make enough money first. Otherwise, how can he even open? After putting away his phone, Chao Chung looks outside at nearly 200 crows perched densely in the trees, a sight that would unsettle anyone else. Haichin stands like a loyal sentinel outside the window, and all those crows outside have clearly accepted Haichin as their undisputed king. When Haichin brought the flock back yesterday morning, Chao Chung took his last remaining Spirit Awakening and Beast Spirit pills and mixed them into their water. While they won't reach the high intelligence of Haichin or Wensi, the mixture was enough to spark their intellect and ensure they follow Haichin's lead. At the same time, it made these crows quite addicted to the sensation. To be honest, they wouldn't leave now even if he tried to drive them away. They crave that spiritual energy far too much. Suddenly, Chao Chung slaps his own forehead as a realization strikes him like a bolt of lightning. He realizes he can attract his livestream viewers to the zoo specifically to see the crows. It was a simple plan, but potentially brilliant. The viral videos of him commanding the crows have been spreading rapidly, and the hype surrounding these birds has finally reached a boiling point. With the cash he had on hand and the speed of his livestream earnings, he realized he could easily afford to hire 2 employees. With all these factors aligning, it's finally time to expand. After dinner, he scrolls through his phone and finds a user named Silver Seal Fairy. She has been fabricating lies to smear him, but when he opens the comment section, he finds himself feeling unexpectedly satisfied by what he sees. A few people are accusing him of inciting cyberbullying and faking his streams, but the vast majority of comments are mocking the fairy with her own photos. Furthermore, a name keeps appearing in the comments, Xiaozhong Therapy. Curious, he clicks on the link provided by the viewers to investigate. It leads to a verified account called Xiaozhong Therapy with 120,000 followers, who has also posted a video about the drama. In the video, a handsome young man with a professional smile plays the Silver Seal Fairy's clip before breaking down the entire situation. He presents various screenshots that clearly explain the origin and development of the whole affair, leaving very little room for doubt. He concludes that if the Silver Seal Fairy cannot produce actual evidence that the Chang'an Zoo owner is faking his streams, she has no case. He notes that there is a real possibility of defamation here, provided, of course, that our zoo owner decides to hold her accountable. The video has already reached 16,500 likes, and the momentum is only growing. The comments section is flooded with unflattering photos and criticism of the Silver Seal Fairy, but what Chao Chung finds truly interesting is the approach. This Xiaozhong character focuses on calling out these petty, shadow-dwelling people, but he avoids direct insults. To avoid accusations of inciting cyberbullying, he cleverly disguises his content as legal education based on fan submissions. Since it's a verified account using only public videos and screenshots, everything he does is perfectly legal and above board. By using the law to shine a light on their malice, he amplifies the impact of their own actions. It's quite brilliant, really. Chao Chung feels like giving the kid a bonus, especially after noticing the account is based right here in Yanhai. He pulls out 1,000 yuan for a delivery fee and hands it to Song Xinjia, whose attitude shifts instantly at the sight of the cash. The transition is incredibly smooth. Song Xinjia promises a delivery within 2 hours and runs off before the sentence is even finished. Not long after, the college student behind the Xiaozhong Therapy account arrives to meet our zoo owner in person. The young man introduces himself as Zhang Wei, confirming he received the private message, and Chao Chung greets him with a warm smile. He welcomes him into the management hall to talk, where Zhang Wei immediately begins expressing his genuine disbelief. He admits he has never seen anyone train birds to such a degree, calling the feat absolutely incredible. He mentions that the bird training tutorial sold on Station A is a bit pricey, otherwise he would have bought it. This makes Chao Chung freeze. Confused, Chao Chung asks about the tutorial, and Zhang Wei explains it's being sold on his Station A account for nearly 2,000 yuan. Something feels very wrong. Chao Chung knows he hasn't had time to register accounts on any platform other than Yinfu yet. He quickly downloads the Station A app and searches for his own name, and to his surprise, he actually finds a match. An account claiming to be the Chang'an Zoo Presale Prince already has 620,000 followers. It's even a verified, famous creator account. In just 4 days, it has posted over 50 videos, all taken from his own live streams. The videos are all clips from his streams, and in the shop window, there's an online course for an ancestral bird training method selling for nearly 2,000 yuan. At 1,988 yuan a set, it has already sold 191 copies, totaling over 379,000 yuan. To be honest, the sheer audacity of it is staggering. Chao Chung is absolutely livid, cursing his luck as he thinks about how hard he's worked with his system, buying equipment and setting everything up. He spends all day streaming, sometimes skipping meals, and even holding back bathroom breaks until he simply can't anymore. In all these days, he's only made about 400,000 yuan, yet a pirate account stealing clips and selling a fake course has matched him. It's quite impressive, in a terrible way. Zhang Wei looks at him nervously and asks him not to say that this account doesn't actually belong to him. Xiao Cheng asks if he looks like an acting school graduate, and Zhang Wei gasps, realizing the gravity of the situation. The young man then delivers even more bad news. Besides Station A, there are accounts on Lushu and several other platforms. From Manshou to Weishi and even Miho Tao, his videos and accounts are everywhere. It's a full-scale digital invasion, really. Zhang Wei pulls out his phone to show him that every major platform below Yinfu is indeed hosting these fake profiles. Two of them are even selling the exact same course, clearly the work of the same person. Xiao Cheng then remembers Zhang Wei's legal background. He asks with righteous indignation if this is illegal, and Zhang Wei nods firmly, confirming the breach of law. He explains that any decent lawyer could 100% put this person behind bars, prompting Xiao Cheng to raise an eyebrow and suggest Zhang Wei take the case. Zhang Wei gives an embarrassed smile, reminding him that as a student without a license, he can't represent individuals in court. However, he can represent a company if he is employed as their legal counsel. In that specific role, he could handle the litigation. It dawns on Xiao Cheng that this is a perfect opportunity. He notes that Zhang Wei is looking for work and offers him a trial at the zoo. He tells him not to look down on their modest little zoo, promising that if he joins, everything will be taken care of. Zhang Wei's breathing quickens with excitement, clearly moved by the offer. He insists he could never look down on such a place. He is more concerned that Xiao Cheng is putting too much trust in him, considering he is still just a student with no real-world experience. Xiao Cheng simply pats his arm, noting that experience is only gained through practice. He encourages him to take the leap. He tells Zhang Wei that practicing here will give him plenty of room to make mistakes, which is the only way to grow quickly. Xiao Cheng sees great potential in the young man. He might lack experience, but he certainly doesn't lack talent or drive. After all, someone without confidence wouldn't have started a specialized legal account, and Zhang Wei is visibly moved by the offer. Xiao Cheng agrees to take him on, though he notes that as an intern, the initial benefits might be somewhat limited. Deep down, Zhang Wei is already prepared for the worst. He is so desperate for the chance that he'd work for free. He tells Xiao Cheng that whatever he decides is fine, showing a level of compliance that is almost touching, really. Xiao Cheng nods and explains that he'll also need help managing social media, which essentially means handling two different roles. He sets the base salary at 8,000 yuan, plus a 10% commission on any financial compensation won through legal battles. Since school might keep him busy, he offers a flexible schedule of 100 hours a month, far better than a standard 9-to-5. With weekends off included, the deal is set, but suddenly Zhang Wei bursts into tears, catching Xiao Cheng completely off guard. Between sobs, the young man asks if this is some kind of cruel joke, insisting that he truly wants to work for him. To Zhang Wei, these terms sound far too good to be true, mostly because, in the real world, they usually are. Xiao Cheng can't help but be amused. He admits to himself that he was testing the boy's reaction just a little bit. He knows perfectly well that this offer far exceeds the market rate for any intern, but he wanted to keep the atmosphere light. He assures him that a gentleman's word is his bond, promising that everything he said is absolutely genuine. As he looks at him with a firm, steady gaze, Zhang Wei finally stops sobbing and begins to process the reality of the situation. The boy whispers that if it's not a joke, then it really is too much, especially that commission on the lawsuits. Just looking at the case against the pirate account on Station A, he's confident he can make them cough up their illegal gains. With at least 400,000 yuan at stake, his 10% cut would already be a staggering 40,000 yuan. And that is just one platform. If they sue every fake account across the web, he could earn over 100,000 in commissions. Xiao Cheng simply wags a finger, telling him that how much he earns depends entirely on his own skill, and only then does Zhang Wei truly believe it. He gives a somewhat clumsy, makeshift salute, promising Xiao Cheng that he'll sue those pirates until they don't even have their undergarments left. Xiao Cheng tells him to go fetch the labor and power of attorney contracts. Zhang Wei wipes his eyes with his sleeve and prepares to move. The boy dashes out at a full sprint, but just then, Xiao Cheng's phone chimes with a notification. 1 million yuan has been deposited. His heart skips a beat as he wonders what is happening. 1 million yuan is a massive sum for any bank to transfer so suddenly. Checking his phone, we see it was a direct transfer from Huaxiao Bank, leading him to wonder if this is the reward for Operation First Prize. Sure enough, Song Xinjie calls almost immediately to confirm that the reward money for the operation has finally been processed. He explains they each get 1 million yuan and asks if it arrived, adding that he shouldn't find the amount too small for this kind of commendation. Usually, these awards are mostly about the honor. Song admits he expected 500,000 at most, and even that seemed like a stretch. This high amount is only because the province took a special interest in the case and wanted to show how much they valued the result. Xiao Cheng knows better than to ask too many questions about such matters, but as he hangs up, the system suddenly makes its presence known. It congratulates him for assisting law enforcement in wiping out the traffickers, maintaining peace, and upholding his righteous reputation. He gains 20 points of prestige, along with 3 Spirit Awakening pills and 5 Spirit Gathering pills as his well-earned rewards. He also receives the 10,000 paths to the Tao technique, and he can't help but feel a surge of genuine excitement at the news. To get 20 prestige points through a live stream, he would need to influence at least 2 million people. Here, one bust did the trick. He pauses to reflect on the fact that helping dismantle a human trafficking ring is undoubtedly a massive contribution to society. Once he realizes why the prestige gain was so high, he feels enlightened and eagerly begins to examine his new 10,000 paths technique. The technique's description notes that while the world is full of suffering, learning this method allows one to discover the destiny of others. Beyond standard cultivation, it finds the most suitable path for spirit beasts, greatly increasing their growth speed so they can support their master. His eyes light up with realization. If he can discover the specific path to the Tao for each of his spirit beasts, his power will skyrocket. If he can properly supervise their training, they might just be able to carry him to new heights. He decides to learn the technique immediately. As he masters the 10,000 paths to the Tao, Wensi the parrot flies back, clutching a pile of live streaming equipment in his beak. Xiao Cheng instantly activates the technique, sending a mysterious, ethereal sense of perception toward Wensi to probe his potential. Something strange happens as the technique takes hold, and Wensi suddenly cries out in wonder at the miracle he feels unfolding. The bird begins shaking his head, shouting through their mental link for Xiao Cheng to prepare some special videos for him to watch. It turns out this technique is a specialized cultivation method for spirit beasts. Once the master learns it, the contracted beasts learn it too. Xiao Cheng's face darkens with annoyance, realizing that Wensi isn't just a bird. He's a bit of a perverted beast, to be perfectly honest. He then turns his attention to Huan, who is resting on a tree outside, and beckons the crow to fly in and land before him. In that moment, Hirakawa felt a sudden surge of intuition, and his deepest, most hidden desires were instantly laid bare. Xiao Cheng is delighted to find that Huan's path to the Tao involves increasing his ability to lead and unify subordinates. The more followers he has, the stronger his abilities and their loyalty become, which in turn accelerates Huan's own cultivation speed. Essentially, he wants to be a ruler, which suits Xiao Cheng just fine, as it provides a clear way for the crow to grow stronger. He tells Huan that starting tomorrow, in addition to his training, he must lead his flock in a specific routine starting at 8 a.m. Every 2 hours, they are to circle the skies above the zoo for 10 minutes, spending the rest of their time interacting with visitors. After 8 in the evening, the crow is free to do as he pleases, and Huan quickly accepts these new royal orders. Our protagonist's intention here is quite simple. He wants to create an air of mystery as he plans to open the park today. Aside from the crows, the zoo doesn't have much to see yet, so he needs them to put on a show of truly magical behavior. He wants to make people feel curious and intrigued, as if there is some deep secret hidden within the zoo's walls. Imagine looking toward the northern sky from the city's main roads and seeing a massive, swirling cloud of black crows circling like a ring. Such a strange sight occurring every 2 hours is bound to draw attention, and with that thought, he sends Huan on his way. At that moment, Luo Jing happens to come downstairs, and Xiao Cheng tells her that since the park opens today, she should keep an eye on the ticket booth. Luo Jing is stunned. In her mind, if a zoo wants to reopen, it needs to at least bring in some actual animals first. Even if there aren't any first-class protected species, you should at least have some second-class ones. Right now, the zoo is just snakes, insects, and rodents. Who would buy a ticket just to see crows? Xiao Cheng knows her concerns, of course, and simply points to the massive flock of crows in the trees outside. Luo Jing finally nods, asking if they should use the old tickets for 10 yuan each. Xiao Cheng shakes his head, as he's already had new ones made. The prices are printed on the new tickets, and they are 100 yuan each. Yes, you heard that correctly, 100 yuan. Luo Jing is absolutely speechless. Even the largest zoo in the city only charges 100 yuan for a ticket, and they have far more than birds. She worries they'll be cursed into a viral sensation for charging that much just for crows, but Xiao Cheng claps his hands, saying that's even better. Negative publicity is still publicity, after all. While they are talking, Zhang Wei comes rushing in like a gust of wind, clutching a contract in his hand. Zhang Wei stops before Xiao Cheng, panting for breath, only to realize Luo Jing is standing there as well. To be honest, he's a bit caught off guard. He is instantly struck by Luo Jing's beauty and, without thinking, blurs out a greeting to his sister-in-law. Naturally, this causes quite a stir. Luo Jing's face turns bright red, and Xiao Cheng doesn't know whether to laugh or cry as he explains she is actually a veteran employee named Luo Jing. Zhang Wei quickly tries to fix his mistake with a formal greeting, and Xiao Cheng introduces him in return as the zoo's new legal counsel. He'll be handling all the company's legal matters from now on, and Luo Jing offers a polite smile, glad to finally see a new face around the office. After that, Xiao Cheng sends Luo Jing to the ticket booth to prepare, while he sits down with Zhang Wei to finalize his employment contract. The moment the contract is signed, the deal is official. Our protagonist now has his very own legal expert on the payroll. He tells Zhang Wei to focus on the upcoming lawsuits and ignore the daily zoo operations. By 10 a.m., Song Xinjia has returned with 4 large boxes of tickets. The tickets are stacked high in the booth, and Xiao Cheng immediately starts a live stream to announce the big news to the world. Within 10 minutes, the viewer count exceeds 100,000, and he officially declares that the Chang'an Zoo is open for business once again. He admits there are no rare beasts yet, only a massive flock of crows, and he turns the camera toward the sky to show them exactly what he means. As the camera captures the massive flock of crows circling above the zoo, the livestream chat erupts in excitement, until Chao Ching announces the 100 yuan ticket price. The chat is instantly filled with complaints, though many local viewers remain surprisingly enthusiastic, shouting that they are heading to the zoo right now. Before long, the area outside Chang'an Zoo is overflowing with cars. A quick estimate suggests at least 200 or 300 people have already arrived. We see crows perched everywhere, on signs, railings, and even the steps, as tourists scramble for the chance to interact and take photos with them. Some birds even land on the visitors' shoulders to pose for pictures, causing the crowd to erupt in waves of delighted cheers and excitement. Meanwhile, a young woman approaches a large tree near the management office hall, where the glass doors remain locked from the inside. Inside, a man has a phone mounted on a tripod and is currently live streaming. She recognizes him as the owner she saw in the videos earlier. The woman steps forward, intending to knock on the door and call him out, but just as she reaches the steps, something stops her. A massive crow suddenly sweeps past her face, causing the woman, Tong Anya, to let out a startled cry and stumble back 2 steps. The crow lands on a windowsill just a few feet away, tilting its head as it stares intently at Anya. It's a bit unsettling, to say the least. Anya feels a shiver run down her spine. She could have sworn she saw a flicker of a warning in the bird's dark eyes. It felt as though the bird would attack if she dared to touch that door again. After a moment of shock, Anya decides to keep her distance. She retreats several paces and pulls out her phone to record, first focusing the lens on the crow, H1, perched on the windowsill. She then turns the camera toward the trees before walking quickly through the park to film the other crows at close range. As she films, she explains that she is Tong Anya, a research intern currently visiting a small zoo in Yunhai City. She notes that the crows here are exhibiting unprecedented behavioral anomalies, gathering in massive numbers and interacting peacefully with the tourists. While it seems these crows are being trained by the zoo owner, Anya observes that they allow for incredibly close inspection. She mentions the videos online, but points out that their physical characteristics are entirely consistent with wild birds, which is quite a mystery. They certainly don't look like captive-bred or traditionally trained animals. Once the recording ends, she intends to send it to her department head, Professor Huang. However, being just an intern, she doesn't actually have the professor's direct contact information, so she has to find another way. She sends the footage directly to a research assistant's phone, asking her senior colleague, Song Qing, to please bring this matter to the attention of Professor Huang. When the assistant, Song Qing, opens the video and takes a look, his eyes immediately light up with a sharp, professional interest. Song Qing's first instinct is to call Professor Huang right away, but then he remembers that the professor is currently in a meeting. A sudden thought flashes through his mind as he considers the scale of this phenomenon. A massive gathering of crows in such a free state is incredibly rare. The research value here is immense, potentially representing a brand new project that could secure substantial funding for whoever leads it. It's the kind of discovery that almost guarantees major results, and reporting it would likely lead to the formation of a dedicated special task force. He realizes that since Professor Huang is already famous and he himself isn't exactly a favorite, reporting it now might just leave him as a mere messenger. However, if he takes the initiative while the professor is busy in his meeting, he might be able to secure a much more prominent role for himself. By forming a small advance team to claim the discovery first, he ensures that even when the official task force is created, he will have a seat at the table. At this thought, he can't help but feel a surge of excitement, though he still needs to play his cards carefully, to be honest. He decides to place a call to Professor Huang anyway, knowing full well the professor is in a meeting and won't pick up. This way, if the professor asks later, he has a perfect excuse. He tried to call immediately, but the professor was simply too busy. He'll claim he feared the situation might change and rushed in with a team to investigate. Sure enough, the call rings twice and is promptly disconnected. An excited smile plays on Song Qing's lips as he realizes it's time to begin, and we soon find him arriving at the zoo. Song Qing looks up at the crows flying overhead and taps an intern on the shoulder, pointing toward the birds heading for the mountains. He notes that they are likely heading there to forage, as these crows interact with tourists but curiously refuse to eat any of their food. It's quite strange, really. He wonders why they are even here if the rumors suggest they are all trained by the zoo owner. Lost in thought, Song Qing mutters to himself that they need to catch a couple of them to see what's actually going on. He wants to fit them with GPS trackers and biological recorders to see what they do in the mountains, so he orders the intern to get the net gun. The intern nods and quickly begins rummaging through a crate to pull out the bird-catching gun for the task ahead. Song Qing takes the weapon and finds a spot where the crows are gathered in large numbers, raising the gun to aim directly at one of them. The crow tilts its head and gives Song Qing a sharp look, almost like a warning, before letting out a harsh, guttural caw. With a muffled thud, a dark canister is launched into the air, suddenly bursting open into a wide, fine-threaded net. The net covers the crow perfectly, and we see the bird flapping its wings violently within the mesh, emitting frantic cries. As the bird falls toward the ground, Song-Ching smiles and steps forward with the gun to pull up the net bag containing the captured crow. Suddenly, a voice asks what she's doing. Song-Ching smiles and tells her junior colleague to get the samples, but she stops mid-sentence. She sees Tong Anya's face pale with terror as she looks behind her. Song-Ching spins around to see a dark mass of crows. The flock is diving toward her with terrifying speed, and to ensure a surprise attack, not a single one of them makes a sound during the descent. By the time Song-Ching realizes what is happening, it is already far too late, and a crow slams directly into her face. If she hadn't instinctively closed her eyes and tried to dodge, the bird's beak would have certainly struck her left eye directly. Immediately after, countless beaks and sharp claws begin impacting her face and body as the crows swarm her in a frenzied attack. The scene is truly horrifying as Song-Ching screams under the assault, leaving Tong Anya completely paralyzed with shock. The other interns quickly strip off their jackets, waving them frantically and shouting to try and drive the murder of crows away. However, the crows seem locked onto Song-Ching with singular focus, ignoring the interns' efforts entirely as they continue their relentless attack. Once the initial wave of fear and panic passes, Song-Ching's anger begins to take over, and she screams at them to get lost. She swings the bird-catching gun violently. It is, after all, a heavy metal rod, and it serves as a formidable club in this moment. Several crows are struck and injured, forced out of the circle, and the surrounding birds momentarily scatter to give her some space. Fuming with rage, Song-Ching roars that she'll kill them all as she frantically reloads the net gun for another shot. She prepares to fire into the densest part of the flock, calculating that a single net could trap at least 6 or 7 birds at once. But just then, a figure rushes out from the management office like a gust of wind, reaching her before she can even raise the gun. This figure rushes forward and delivers a powerful kick directly into Song-Ching's midsection. Song-Ching is sent flying back several meters, and the other interns waving their jackets don't fare much better against this newcomer. With a speed that ordinary people simply cannot react to, he kicks them down one by one until they are all sprawled on the ground. Fortunately, Tong Anya had stayed far enough away to avoid a similar fate as Chao Chung glares coldly at the group. He had just finished his live stream and thought he should greet the researchers, but things took a turn before he even left the office. Haichin had already alerted him to the situation through their spiritual connection, and he demands to know who allowed these people to run wild. While Song-Ching is left speechless, one of the interns curls up on the ground, clutching his chest and shouting in protest. He claims they are from the Agricultural Research Institute, and that the woman Chao Chung just kicked is a professional researcher. Chao Chung retorts that they entered without tickets and attacked his crows, but the intern insists they were only trying to attach trackers. They claim it was all for the sake of research, to which Chao Chung simply asks if he ever gave them permission to study anything. By now, Song-Ching has recovered her breath, and her initial shock has transformed into a state of absolute, blinding rage. She screams that she doesn't need his permission for academic work, insulting him and his crows with utter contempt. Before her roar can even fade, Chao Chung delivers another kick, this time directly to her face, leaving her in a state of helpless fury. She shrieks that he is in massive trouble and threatens to call the police immediately for the assault on scientific personnel. She vows to see him rot in prison and have his reputation destroyed as she frantically pulls out her phone to make the call. The other interns finally regain their footing and gather around Song-Ching, staring at Chao Chung with hostile, predatory eyes. Meanwhile, Tong Anya can only curse Song-Ching's stupidity in her head, wondering how she could be so blind to the situation. It is quite obvious that Chao Ching isn't intimidated by their titles at all, so Anya steps forward to try and explain. However, Chao Ching merely gives her a cold, dismissive glance before turning his back to check on the injured crows. One of the birds is indeed badly hurt, and he realizes he cannot treat it properly right under the noses of these people. Using his mystic spirit medical arts, Chao Chung immediately picks up the injured crow and walks quickly toward the management office hall. To Song-Ching and her group, however, this looks like a cowardly retreat, and she sneers that hiding won't save him now. While the other interns help Song-Ching tend to her injuries, we see Chao Chung finishing the treatment for his crows. As he steps back outside, he is met by 2 law enforcement officers, noting calmly that they arrived quite quickly. The male officer frowns and asks if he was the one who hit these people, to which Chao Chung does something unexpected. He simply nods in agreement, leaving the officer stunned by an attitude that seems, to be honest, a bit arrogant. He explains that these crows are protected wildlife, and they were perfectly fine until these people arrived at his zoo. Suddenly, the 2 officers tremble as they look toward the entrance, their eyes widening in complete disbelief at who has arrived. The man leading the group appears to be Song Shinjia, the director's low-profile son, and the crowd behind him is even more imposing. Right in the center of the group is director Song Taizhan himself, the man who holds the highest authority in the city. Behind him are Luo Hu, Qian Weiming, and Zhou Yueming, every single one of them a heavyweight from the Law Enforcement Bureau. Forgetting everything else, the two local officers rush forward to stand at attention and deliver a sharp, synchronized salute. They shout a greeting to the director, though Song Taizhan looks rather confused as to why two junior officers are even here. He asks for their names, and they identify themselves as Chun Jiao and Wang He from the North China Road Station. As Song Taizhan looks past them, his brow furrows deeply when he notices the scene unfolding in the background. He sees Song Qing covered in blood and dust, demanding to know exactly what has been happening at this zoo. Song Qing and her interns are frozen in shock, wondering why the powerful director would personally visit such a place. He is a man who commands the city's entire security apparatus, someone they would normally never have the chance to meet. Just as the two officers prepare to explain, Song Xinjie notices the shiny silver handcuffs currently locking Chao Cheng's wrists. His eyes bulge with fury as he roars, demanding to know who on earth dared to put him in chains. As Song Taizhan and his group approach, they finally notice the handcuffs, and their faces instantly turn a grim, ashen shade of gray. Every gaze shifts toward the two junior officers, who turn pale as sheets. The female officer, in particular, feels her knees go weak. Her hand instinctively reaches for her empty belt, realizing the gravity of the situation in front of these high-ranking officials. The men present are all city-level heavyweights who can tell at a glance that her standard-issue gear is missing its most important restraint. Song Tieshan's eyebrows knit together in fury as he wonders what on earth is happening, having brought this delegation here personally today. He had even postponed his regular duties just to ensure this visit showed the proper level of respect and importance. The goal was to support Chao Cheng and build a relationship with this extraordinary man, but now, everything seems to be falling apart. These two officers have essentially sabotaged the meeting, and Song Taizhan asks in a chilling voice exactly why he was handcuffed. His aura is terrifyingly intense, leaving Chun Jiao and Wang He completely stunned until Luo, who commands Wang He to speak up. Wang He finally finds the courage to explain that they received a report of an intentional assault and rushed to the scene. He claims the researchers said they were studying the crows when the zoo owner suddenly attacked them without provocation. When asked why he did it, the officer explains that the owner claimed to see the researchers attacking the birds first. The owner insisted the crows are protected wildlife and that he was merely stepping in to prevent a crime from being committed. Song Taizhan asks if the researchers actually attacked the birds, causing Wang He to swallow hard in visible hesitation. When he stammers that he doesn't know, Luo Hu barks back, asking how on earth he could arrest someone without knowing the facts. Terrified to his core, Wang He deflects, saying it was his partner who insisted on the arrest despite the owner's request to check the cameras. Chen Jiao had told the owner they would handle the investigation themselves and demanded unconditional cooperation before she slapped the cuffs on him. By now, Chen Jiao's face is utterly bloodless, realizing that she has stepped into a situation far larger than she can handle. She never imagined in her wildest dreams that her abuse of power would be caught red-handed by every single boss in the bureau. Suppressing his mounting rage, Song Taizhan orders Luo Hu to unlock the restraints immediately, and Luo Hu reaches for his keys. Before Luo Hu can even move, Song Xinjie impatiently grabs the keys to unlock the restraints, but Chao Cheng simply looks away, spinning around to avoid him. He dances in circles, dodging Xinjie's every attempt, while the young officer whispers under his breath, pleading with him to stop making a scene. We see the two of them spinning in place like a comedy routine, leaving Song Taizhan and the others speechless at the young man's stubbornness. And yet, the director understands his frustration. Imagine helping the police solve a massive, high-stakes case, only to be treated like a criminal. Before he even receives his reward, his trained crows are attacked, and when he steps in to stop it, he's the one who ends up in chains. It is a profound humiliation, to say the least. To be honest, it's a miracle he hasn't lost his temper and started a fight already. Chao Cheng is clearly demanding an apology through his actions, and since Xinjie can't unlock the cuffs, he reaches into the owner's pocket instead. He pulls out the phone, uses facial recognition to unlock it, and skillfully opens the surveillance app to find the truth. Xinjie finds the footage immediately and hands it to Song Taizhan. As the officials watch the screen, their expressions turn to pure outrage. It was hard to believe, but these people were actually using bird guns to shoot at the crows, picking a fight with the entire flock. They had already managed to injure several of them, which was, quite frankly, outrageous, considering these crows were practically heroes. If it hadn't been for the narrator and his crows saving the day, Song Tieshan's career would have been in serious jeopardy. He ordered them all to be arrested, but as they were being escorted out of the zoo entrance, they all froze in disbelief. Dozens of flower baskets and lucky trees lined both sides, covered in banners wishing for a grand and prosperous opening. The names on the two largest banners were unmistakable, Song Taizhan, and looking further down the line, there were names like Luo Hu, Qian Weiming, and Zhou Yueming, an entire roster of high-ranking city officials. It seemed Song Taizhan and the others had actually come to celebrate the opening. It felt impossible, and yet, there they were. They were truly there to offer their congratulations. Inside the zoo, Song Xinjie had already unlocked the handcuffs. Song Taizhan reached out his hand, explaining that they had come to celebrate the opening and present an award. He apologized for the awkward meeting, and the young man reached out to shake his firm, powerful hand. Xiao Cheng smiled, apologizing for not greeting them sooner, and explained that Xinjie had called him ahead of time to warn him. In fact, we learned that he had received Xinjie's call just 2 minutes before leaving the management office. The young officer told him his father was bringing a group to celebrate the opening and have a chat, which explains everything. Knowing this, he had purposely let Chen Jiao cuff him earlier. Song Taizhan and the others were surprised by how reasonable he was. It seemed the young man knew how to balance a grudge. One matter was settled, so he welcomed everyone into the management hall. The so-called award was actually a special medal commissioned by the city bureau specifically for him. It was quite a unique piece. The medal was a striking gold and red, shaped like a decorative silk ball with intricate edges and the date engraved on the back. It bore the inscription of the Yunhai City Law Enforcement Bureau, recognizing his extraordinary contribution during the recent operation. Both he and Song Xinjie received one. Once the ceremony ended, Song Taizhan didn't linger, and our protagonist began to spin a tale. He skillfully painted his grandfather as a legendary folk master of animal training. A bit of an exaggeration, perhaps, but effective. After all, Tieshan's group mostly wanted to observe his character and build a rapport. After they left, the day finally wound down. He took a stroll through the park, noting that they had made 30,000 yuan in ticket sales. Not a bad start at all. Confident that things would only improve, he was about to call Luo Jin for dinner when he spotted something strange under a large tree. A girl dressed in an elegant black evening gown was using food to lure the nearby crows toward her. A curious sight, indeed. Not far in front of her, a phone was mounted high on a tripod, likely positioned to capture the perfect atmospheric photo. To be honest, the black gown and the dark crows were a perfect match, creating a rather striking aesthetic in the twilight. The contrast with her pale skin was undeniable, but as he looked closer at her face, his mood shifted instantly from curiosity to anger. It was that woman again, the one who had been with the research institute team earlier that day. A scientist, if he recalled correctly. She hadn't been there when Song Taizhan arrested Song Qing's group, which was a lucky break for her at the time. She must have sensed trouble and fled early, only to return in a different outfit. But a change of clothes wouldn't hide her identity. He didn't care if she had changed her clothes. He recognized her instantly and shouted for her to get out, giving the girl quite a fright. To his surprise, the girl immediately flashed a sweet, almost flattering smile and pressed her hands together. "Boss, you're finally here," she chirped. She begged him to let the crows cooperate for a few photos, explaining that she had been trying all day with very disappointing results. Losing patience, he asked if she was deaf and told her to leave, declaring that everyone from her research institute was now banned from the park. The girl realized the misunderstanding immediately. Lifting her skirt, she hurried over while waving her hands in a frantic no gesture. She insisted he had the wrong person, explaining that the woman in glasses from earlier was actually her older sister, Tong Anya. Her own name was Tong Anchi. They were twins, she explained, but they were definitely not on the same side of the fence. In fact, she joked that they hadn't been close since they left the womb. As she drew nearer, he began to notice the subtle differences. It seemed they really were twins, though this younger sister possessed a temperament that was worlds apart from her sibling. While the sister was a cold, aloof academic, Anchi was vibrant and flirtatious, a classic case of polar opposites, one might say. He remained skeptical, asking if her sister had sent her to sneak photos of the crows, but Anchi shook her head vigorously in denial. She claimed to be a beauty dancer, a profession she invented herself that combines various forms of aesthetics with dance. To prove her point, she showed him her social media profile, which boasted an impressive 1.58 million followers. As he scrolled through her posts, we see a collection of trendy, suggestive dances. A beauty dancer indeed, or perhaps just a clever influencer. She admitted with a shrug that she had to make a living somehow, and there was no shame in it. Then, she showed him her latest work. The photos and videos from today were actually quite stunning, with her black gown and the crows complementing each other perfectly. With a dark filter applied, she looked like a mysterious princess of the night. He told her if she wanted to shoot, she should return tomorrow. And she pouted, pleading with him not to chase her away just as the sunset was providing the perfect, golden light for her photos. She admitted she knew the crows followed his every command and begged him to make them cooperate for just a few more shots. Biting her lip, Anchi gently tugged on his hand and began to sway, using every bit of her charm to get exactly what she wanted. He pointed out that while the crows followed him, he had no reason to follow her lead, which left her wondering exactly what he wanted from her. He explained that he was short-staffed and offered her a job. Not only would she stop paying admission, but he would actually pay her a salary. Her instructions were simple. Show up tomorrow in her most eye-catching outfit and interact with the crows during live streams to attract customers. He even suggested she help manage the channel, leaving Anchi speechless at the idea of being treated like one of his performing animals. However, he sweetened the deal by promising that as an employee, all the crows would cooperate for her photos whenever she liked. He added that in the future, he would be training even more animals, creatures that were cute, colorful, and even fierce. As an employee benefit, she could photograph them all. Naturally, she agreed. A little later, as he returned to his quarters. Upstairs, He felt a surge of joy as a powerful wave of spiritual energy flooded his body, heightening his control over the elements around him. His physical functions reached a new level, the middle stage of chi refining. It was a marvelous sensation, to say the least. The next morning, we find ourselves at the North City Wildlife Rescue Station, where the atmosphere is thick with tension and urgency. A dying tiger was currently undergoing emergency treatment, but the experts from the Yunhai Wildlife Rescue Center were losing hope. The lead expert shook his head, noting the tiger had lost too much blood. If the animal died, the responsibility would fall squarely on them. Fearing the consequences of a failed rescue, the experts and the staff in charge were visibly anxious about the potential fallout. The owner of Green Forest Zoo pulled Director Zhang aside, whispering that he had a way to get this hot potato off their hands. Meanwhile, back at our park, he had just finished breakfast when Anqi and Zhang Wei arrived to report for duty. He had Zhang Wei draft a labor contract for Anqi, and just as the ink was drying on the signatures, the first tourists of the day began to trickle through the gates. There were noticeably fewer customers today. After all, few people would pay 100 yuan every single day just to see crows. He realized he needed to add more variety to the show, and with his new cultivation level, he could now contract a third spirit beast. As he pondered what kind of creature his third spirit beast should be, the quiet morning was suddenly shattered by a commotion at the gate. He focused his spiritual vision, using the eyes of the crows at the entrance to see dozens of vehicles pulling up outside the park. At the head of the convoy was a large transport vehicle marked with the logo of the Yunhai Wildlife Rescue Center. He hurried to the gate to meet Director Zhang, who was already in a heated discussion with Luo Jin, backed by a small army of people. A swarm of reporters followed close behind, cameras at the ready, as Chow asked the director exactly what was going on. Director Zhang Xiaoyang introduced himself, explaining that the city had rescued an injured South China tiger earlier that morning. He claimed they had stabilized the beast and now needed a quiet place for its recovery, a task the public apparently thought Chow was perfect for. With the city's official approval, the director practically begged Boss Chow to take the tiger under his wing for the sake of conservation. Before he could even respond, the staff began rolling out a massive transport cage from the back of the vehicle. Inside lay a magnificent predator, nearly 9 feet long from nose to tail, resting weakly on its side within the iron bars. To be honest, Chow was stunned. His spiritual sight revealed a green aura above the tiger, meaning it was currently open to a contract. This was a rare opportunity, as even with his mid-stage chi refining, a healthy tiger would normally be far beyond his current level to tame. While a wolf might show a yellow or reddish aura, a tiger in its prime would be a deep, unreachable red, impossible to bind. Yet here was a chance for a high-level contract. He wondered if the tiger somehow knew he was the only one who could save it. However, through his mystical medical skills, he could sense that the poor creature was truly on the brink of death, barely clinging to life. He shot a cold look at Director Zhang, realizing the man was essentially handing him a hot potato to shift the blame if it died. He glanced at the wall of media lenses behind the director. If he refused to take the tiger now, his reputation would be torn to shreds. And if the tiger died under his care, he would become a public villain, which, naturally, was exactly what the director intended. He decided he would settle the score with Director Zhang later, but for now, he had a more pressing matter to attend to. He stepped quickly toward the cage, where he could faintly sense the tiger's profound despair and its fading will to live. Facing the fear of death, Chow told Director Zhang that while he could provide a quiet environment, he lacked a first-class wildlife breeding permit. He pointed out that keeping the tiger might be against the rules, but the director insisted that rules are flexible when lives are at stake. The director argued that since the Chang'an Zoo had experience with large mammals, it was the perfect place for the beast to recover. He promised that if the tiger recovered well, that first-class permit wouldn't be far off, a hollow promise that made Chow sneer inwardly. Chow noted that helping the city was his duty, but insisted that for a proper recovery, they couldn't have any more disturbances. He requested that the media friends stop right there, a condition that made Director Zhang's face light up with a massive, relieved grin. The director agreed instantly, eager to leave the scene and wash his hands of the situation as quickly as possible. If the tiger died now, the blame would fall entirely on the zoo, so, after bringing the predator inside, Chow moved it to the snake house. He closed the heavy doors and returned to the tiger's side, preparing himself to initiate the spiritual contract with the dying beast. The tiger's injuries were incredibly severe. Had he not reached the mid-stage of chi refining, he wouldn't have dared to attempt this. He whispered a soft instruction for the beast to cooperate, then reached his hand into the cage toward the tiger's forehead. As his palm touched the fur, he channeled his spiritual energy, slowly establishing a mystical connection with the predator's mind. Even though the aura was green, this contract took far longer than those of Wenxi and Hechuan combined. Finally, we see a bond form as their hearts and minds align, and Chow gently strokes the great cat's head in a moment of peace. The tiger squinted its eyes in comfort, and Chow quickly produced 1 spirit awakening pill and 2 beast spirit pills for his new companion. Despite being on the verge of death, the tiger seemed instinctively excited as it sensed the power within the medicine. It reached out its tongue and swept the pills from his palm. The beast spirit pills were potent enough to stabilize its fading life force. As the energy spread through the tiger's body, its life was secured, especially when combined with Chow's profound mystical medical skills. The external wounds began to heal, and as the tiger regained its spirit, a deep, steady voice suddenly echoed in Chow's sea of consciousness. The voice called him master, and when Chow asked if it felt better, the tiger replied that it felt much improved. Since you've managed to survive, from this day forward, your name shall be Pujuan, a name for a tiger. Naturally, it had to sound domineering and brave. The beast thanked its master for the name, though Chow was actually quite curious. He asked if the creature knew it was an extremely rare species. By now, Pujuan had managed to struggle to its feet. The tiger admitted it hadn't seen many of its own kind, but recalled seeing another tiger with the same bloodline while imprisoned. Chow asked where it had been held captive. According to human time, Pujuan explained it had been imprisoned for about a year. As for the location, the tiger didn't know. It only remembered there were dense jungles and a wide river nearby. The people there spoke differently than his master. It seemed they were using an entirely different language. Speaking a different language, Chow wondered if they were foreigners. To be honest, the mystery was only deepening. Pujuan believed that if its cultivation became strong enough in the future, it should be able to find the way back. Even though Pujuan sent this message through spiritual sense, Chow could still feel a distinct surge of killing intent within it. It seemed those people had treated the beast cruelly, so Chow promised to take it back for revenge once it grew stronger. After saying this, he passed the myriad laws of the Tao technique to Pujuan so the tiger could begin its cultivation.